is an artist working in full range of media. She's curated and co-curated the GB Art exhibition. She's encyclopedic actor, which is on until 17th of April. And co-curated the creation of the commune.
Thank you. So thank you for inviting me, Heather, and thank you very much to Yeshua and Nick Woodley for their support, and the directors of GB Art, Robert Debchich and Nick Gollop for their help in helping me find the images and all the information to prepare this talk. So I'm going to talk about the exhibition Encyclopedia Galactica. It's a retrospective of GB Art's last 5 years at gallery at Chelsea Street. So it is encyclopedic. The artists and scientists who have submitted their work at GB Art demonstrate that human experience does not fit similarly into categories. They challenge disciplinary distinctions by making connections, establishing relationships, and discovering interesting conflicts, controversies, and ruptures. The themes of consciousness, trauma, illness, and death are not the domain of any one discipline, but of our need to understand the human condition. So I'm going to talk about the artwork in Encyclopedia Galactica by referring to GB Art's activities in general, based on the work that we've included in the exhibition. Then I'm going to focus on a previous exhibition called Trauma that brings a few of the artistic themes that have been programmed in the gallery over the last 5 years. Then I'm going to focus on the Penguins project, particular art project by Oren Katz and Leonardo. Then I'm going to talk about the recreation of a research project into the common room that is within this exhibition. And I'm going to talk about the common room minute book as well. Then I'm going to talk about paradigm shift that was going on at the time of the common room, 1957 to 1959. I'll talk a little bit about Stefan and Francisca's activities. And then I'll focus a little bit on Francisca's work and on Stefan's work. This is the Leonardo's piece. You can access the information from the brain scans when you use the QR code on the drawing. And there's one of the scans is drawn to the drawing. These are all upstairs. This is David Marin's drawing, who works very much at the interface of life and death being. This piece by Wally Yashin is a piece on synesthesia and its collaboration with 10 musicians. He's come up with the image and then asked 10 musicians to respond to the piece. So it's a sound piece to go with the image. This one by Andy Troll is cast of the inside of a skull. And Helen Arnold's 3 pieces from the Red Sea Yule series. The first one, these are all body parts with remedies. So the first one is constipation, the digestive system. The second one is head cold, and the third one is headache with the remedies at the top. Right, so scientists provided the context for the exhibition Trauma at GB Art in 2010. And we included a number of works of art in Encyclopedia Galactica that either were in that show or reference the theme of that show. There were artists and scientists in this exhibition. And scientific specimens and data brought other dimensions and alternative perspectives to the work. Just as the Science Lab separates research from the messy business of life, so emotion is evacuated in scientific contexts. So one of the questions that comes up is, can art reflect scientific research with emotional dimensions? And another question is, does our response differ when we encounter displays alternatively in scientific or artistic contexts? And and what happens when specimens such as slices of the brain from a patient diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, are displayed within the gallery context. For some visitors, such displays can be controversial, while for others they provide an empowering understanding of the awesome and terrifying aspects of scientific facts. William Kosmaoglou was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 1995, and then from that moment on he began to try and understand what he was going through. One of the people who encouraged him in this was a nurse called Ron ISAST. So these kind of paintings and drawings were in a way made, in a way for him. He has pursued the project over 12 years, adapting his style to the increasing limitations of his perception and motor skills, and creating images that documented his experience of his illness. So this body of work is a unique artistic, medical and personal record of struggle with dementia. This image is from 1997, from the same year, self-portrait with Saul, which was the day when he signed over his brain to science. The next image, 1998, portrait with Esau. His head is very often disembodied in these images. And 1999, one of the last paintings that he made. The next artist I'd like to talk about is Pascal Collier, who talks about a different kind of trauma in the work. So this is the bottom, the sort of downstairs view of the gallery, the exhibition. You can see some microscopes in the corner, Pascal's piece in the far end, and a specimen by Dr. Jake Burrell. So, this is one of the specimens you can see with a microscope at the exhibition. So it's a microscopic image of a vascular corrosion cast of human colorectal cancer. So this cast is made in these vessels that are forming around the tumour, and they become deformed and chaotic as they grow and nourish the tumours. So you can actually, scientists can actually identify tumours by the growth of the blood vessels. And this cast has been made with this low viscosity monomerism that can go into even the thinnest capillary tubes, and I thought it was a beautiful image, very sculptural, and so is the process. Okay, so I asked earlier on about this controversial aspect of including specimens in the gallery, and another very important exhibition at GBR, Brainstorm, introduced a human brain into the gallery, and Conservative MP David Amos, and I'm quoting from the Daily Mail, a former member of the Health Select Committee, told the Evening Standard, it's one thing if this is done in a laboratory, but it's degrading to put body parts on display in a public place. In my personal opinion, this is a disrespectful way to treat the human body and is unacceptable. So what is it about bringing specimens into an art gallery that is different to exhibiting these specimens in a science gallery, for example? So the question is ethical, but it's also sometimes to do with art. So the question that always comes up is it art? Although these specimens are not presented in the gallery as art, I think that question always brings up this kind of disciplinary anxiety. And so, for example, Arthur Danto, in his book After the End of Art, asks the question, what is the difference between a Brillo box by Andy Warhol and a real Brillo box? Why is the one in the museum and why is the other one? And he comes up with these philosophical explanations. He tries to, in a way, define art in order to explain why one thing is in a gallery and why it isn't. Whereas it's actually the validation process in the art world that decides what is art and what is not. It's the context of exhibiting something. So that's why, in a way, exhibiting a specimen in a gallery automatically brings up that question. It might also be because in Brainstorm, for example, it was a brain, the organ that we use to think, that potentially brings up this question. So the MP David Amos suggests that the problem of displaying a human brain in art and cultural context is because it's not the appropriate environment, it's not the right place. Just like the White Cube is considered the right place for art, the Latin Science Museum is the right place for body parts. So that would be an interesting question maybe to throw out. Catherine Dowson, in a way, approaches the same question, but in the same subject matter as James Burrell, previously interviewed by James Burrell. This is a different type of capillary malformation. This is an MRI scan of her cousin's brain. It's a cerebral angiogram. And the X-ray test highlights blood vessels in the head and neck. And this particular form of arteriovenous malformation is caused by a two-direct connection between the arteries and the veins. So this particular condition can be resolved with laser surgery, which is also medium that was used to train the work. So, Catherine Dowson works with lenses and clear sort of perspex materials, cubic forms and circles, all kind of scientific tools, the lenses, the transparency that reference science. Oh, another closer image of the images downstairs. Charlie Franklin she's an artist, not a scientist, doesn't really work with science, but she works with with materials. She's very interested in manipulating, working with materials and transforming them. So she's more of the alchemist. So the Tissue Culture and Art Project was set up by Oren Katz and Gemma Flora in 1996. And then they established Symbiotica in 2000. And that's a research laboratory within the biological science department at the University of Western Australia. So these penguins were made using tissue engineering and stem cell technologies in the lab. And just a quote from Oren Katz: advances in biomedical technologies such as tissue engineering, xenotransplantation, and genomic clones to render the living body immutable mass. The rhetoric used by private and public developers in the media have created anticipation of less than realistic outcomes. The full effects of these powerful technologies on the body and society have only been superficially discussed. These penguins are very small, about 4 centimeters by half each. And they were made out of pig mesenchymal bones. These are bone marrow stem cells, and they were grown over biodegradable, bioabsorbable polymers. And then the wings were grown for approximately 9 months in a rotary cell culture bioreactor. And then coated with gold. Now they've got these shapes because of different cultural associations with wings. So, of course, if wings could fly, if pigs could fly, what would their wings look like? So, the top set of wings are sort of bat's wings associated with the nether world. The second set is the angel wings, obviously associated with benign forces or creatures. And the third set is from the pterosaurus that doesn't have any associations. Now, this work was in an exhibition called Emerging Light of Science, curated by Arthur Miller, and there was a very interesting series of debates organised around this. You can find the videos online. One of the interesting things that Oren Katz says is, I'm trying to deal with the kind of stuff that we don't have a cultural language to engage with. I'm trying to develop this new cultural language by definition can be seen as a transgressive act. The fact that these things are happening on a routine basis within other realms of our society and our culture, within the scientific level, within the engineering workshop, but then being introduced within this cultural realm and without the language to engage with it. The critics can't deal with it because they have no language. The public sees it as a transgressive act because how could they, this could violate and challenge what they felt the world did. It's not a warm fuzzy feeling to stand speechless before something and needing and being forced to articulate for oneself what one is being confronted with. And this goes to the public and the critics. Really, we are asking them to work. One of the interesting issue that comes up here in this exhibition is the question of all of these scientific advances in engineering and stem cell research. What are they leading to? Obviously, at the moment, the results are not something we can improve in our daily lives, but one of the interesting questions that comes up in this sort of conjunction between artists and science is that artists are asking difficult questions of the scientists. So I'll go on towards the corner room, which is the research project that we initiated on the corner room. So there was a chessboard in the original corner room to come in and read the books and the magazines. So this is a drawing by Francis Tennyson called Scientific Thought. Another one called The Lecture. And this is a pin board organized by Yasha with ephemera from Common Room. We have books published by the Books Press. Some images from the evening. This is Francisca. And Leonardo, who's very instrumental in keeping the Gap Box Common Room going. So the minutes that you've already heard about. I like this page. This is the introductory page in the book by Withers, who says, this is Barbara Wright writing out her recording the talk. So Mr. Withers spoke on science and art. Withers said he hoped to provoke his theories into discussion. When he looked at modern people who found himself speechless or inclined to ask silly questions, but having heard the word truth, which referred to by artists, much referred by artists in relation to art, there was somebody present who would be able to tell him what it was. So one of the interesting things that you can see in the minute book is how there are responses in following talks to discussions in previous talks, and the Q&A is recorded as well. So the discussion followed in which the views were expressed that an art explanation follows understanding, but does not necessarily have a direct relationship with it. That it is necessary to become familiar with the body in order to be able to see them. Everybody, Bert Barton, changing the world is equally due to the activities of scientists and artists, Dr. and Francis Tennyson. So I will go through these very quickly now to get to this review by Oswald Blakeson about Common Room. So one of the interesting things that he says is referring to something that Stefan Tennyson said about what scientists were doing. The scientists are in a way making art. Yes, art society today. Scientists go to nature, discover how things are together, and haven't discovered this that make things with nature, which nature could never have made. And what he says, although I can't find it on this page, is this is what Stefan Tennyson suggested, that modern scientists are doing art. Modern science is doing artwork. because it no longer relies on the laboratory. And what this means is that one scientist is creating from his imagination. So in the past, artists had a monopoly of imagination, and scientists observed and were not concerned with, say, problems of particles which were presumed to exist. Artists and today's scientists go to nature. Yeah, so this kind of leads me on to the next sort of final idea for the time being, which is a paradigm shift that's taking place at the time. I'm just going to read through a quick sort of timeline. In 1942, Isaac Asimov wrote Encyclopedia Galactica, published in Astounding Science Fiction. So, in 1949 to 58, was one of the ratio club, a small informal mining club of young psychologists, physiologists, mathematicians, and engineers who met to discuss issues in cybernetics. In 1951 was the Growth Reform exhibition at the ICA, organised by Richard Hamilton. In 1953, the exhibition again by Richard Hamilton at the ICA called Wonder and Horror of the Human Head. In 1953 was Parallel Life and Art at the ICA, announced by the Independent Group. From about 1954 to the 1960s was the Lina House, which was the birthplace of Leonardo. Frank and Marguerite Lina bought a house in Paris at the in the Boulogne-Billancourt, sorry, I don't speak French, which was a thriving industrial area, and also artists had their studios there, and they traditionally had open house on Sundays, and sort of Frank and Marguerite continued this, and their house was the house was a studio for Frank and Lina's kinetic art, but also a space for art and science debates in the 50s and 60s. Guests and visitors included astronautical pioneers, artists, scholars like Jacob Bronowski, Frank Popper, and others. 1953 was the Man, Machine and Motion exhibition, again at the ICA, organised by Richard Hamilton. 1956, C.P. Snow published the essay Two Cultures in New Statesman. So this may have been one of the reasons for the common room. Then he did a lecture in 1959. In 1959, again, Karl Popper wrote Ecology of Scientific Discovery, and in 1964, Arthur Koester wrote The Act of Creation. That's one example.